everyone, welcome back! I've got a splendid meme for you today. This is just some dumb fun. Surprisingly, it got much better KPM than I expected, but if we could find a way to lower the downtime on the rotation, it would probably be viable. We got to 100 KPM on this THUNDERSHOCK GRENDEL meme build, but it's entirely dependent on how well you can play. Why did I think it was worth showing? Well, one variant is actually really good, and the other one is a bit more finicky, but because it can kill Acolytes, and while it isn't necessarily the comfiest setup, it is honestly pretty funny in watching everything die to his Meatball. We also have the non-Meatball version that plays a bit differently and works really well. Actually, you can't really see what's going on, so let me change the color of this Ferrox real quick. This is why I called it THUNDERSHOCK GRENDEL. Can you see anything? Well, that's why I set it to black energy colors. Black actually makes the pulse field completely invisible, which helps a lot on seeing priority targets when the pulse is centered around you. So what exactly is going on here? It has to do with the new way how Spearguns work. Now you can throw them, auto-reload the Speargun, and still be able to shoot and use it. Throwing the Speargun again will despawn the previous. This is a trait shared with all Spearguns. Now, Ferrox has a pulsing electric field that slowly draws enemies in and can apply dots when it's thrown, but something different happens if you throw the spear directly at an enemy. It no longer despawns when you throw again. This means so long as you throw the spear directly onto an enemy, there is no cap to how many Ferroxes you can throw. They do have a fixed duration of 30 seconds even if there is no throw limit, so eventually you'll have to throw them again. What can Grendel do with this? He can eat them, including the Ferrox attached to their bodies. If Grendel goes onto his Meatball form, now he becomes an electro-pulsing Thunderball. It seems to act like a projectile AoE because it shreds Acolytes in a way that direct hit weapons fail to do. Remember how Brahma, Zar, and other weapons have insane raw damage against Acolytes, yet even something like a Sniper or a Queller fails to one-shot them. By eating 4 or 5 Feroxes, you roll around and do 4 to 5 times more damage. Basically, you become Octavia's Resonator, except it's DPS. Sadly, the rotation is a bit annoying to set up, but if a teammate threw the Feroxes for you, it would be a lot comfier to use. Ferox's Altfire is a very mysterious tool that continues to elude many of us on its mechanics. How exactly do you mod for it? It has a fixed radius of 10 meters that is unaffected by mods. The 30 seconds duration is also fixed. It also has a fixed 50% status chance and ignores multi-shot because, well, you can't throw multiple spears at once, I guess? But that's what sticking it into enemies compensates for. The field also cannot crit and it ignores all sources of crit in the game. The only types of mods that work on the All-Fire are elemental mods, base damage, faction mods which double dip on the dots created by it still, and a fire rate. Wait, what does fire rate do? It increases the frequency at which the spear pulses out its AoE, leading to more damage and more procs. I'm going to be keeping the Ferrox on electric damage today since we will be armor stripping and loose grouping. This is what the Ferrox build looks like. I have Viral here to boost my damage because my Panzer is not going to be able to consistently do it for me. There are 2 versions of the Grendel we'll be using today. One is the Meatball build, the other doesn't use the Meatball. If you don't use the Meatball, you can bring an Epitaph to prime manually, which means you can go full electric on the Ferrox. Just keep in mind that Grendel takes a lot more damage this way since he lacks the crowd control and altered hitbox of his Meatball. I've double stacked the fire rate and even brought along Arcane Acceleration on Grendel himself. Base damage as always since it is treated as an AoE and gun CO doesn't work here. We also get faster sprint speed. Yes, kills by the AoE will stack Primary Merciless, and we have our Primed Bane which double dips on our electric procs and Stormbringer for more electric scaling. Prime Fast Hands is a personal choice here. It cuts the forced reload down from 1.4 seconds to 1 second. Otherwise, you could run the 60/60 electric mod here, and if you don't run Viral or the Reload mod, then the Viral mods can also be replaced by Heavy Caliber and Vigilante Fervor. Don't use Prime Shred because it will make the spear go through enemies instead of sticking to them. Excellus doesn't matter. The Epitaph, if you aren't using the Meatball build today, is just basic Viral and Radiation. Radiation to make them stop shooting you, and Viral to buff your Ferox's damage. Cold will slow enemies, so I wouldn't recommend using this on groups further away as it just makes the build more difficult to use. Augur mods are here to be an easy Augur stat stick since Grendel barely has shields and anything you cast will give all of them back for full shield gating. Ammo mutation helps. Okay, so Grendel, I'm going to show you the Meatball build first, which is the one where you don't want to spam Epitaph since it's funnier. It's also slightly more impractical of the 2 since you cannot cast abilities when in that form. We have Growing Power in the Aura slot for even more damage on our Roar. We've replaced his 3 because it doesn't do anything here, and Prime Sure-Footed helps with the convoluted setup but does nothing for the Meatball itself. Gourmand lets Feast to not affect our energy economy and makes it easier to run such high strength as you'd want to actually eat as few enemies as possible on this build. The less the better, for less drain since our DPS comes from Ferrox and not the Meatball. If you can throw 3 Ferroxes or more onto one enemy and only eat them, then perfect. Because the Ferrox only lasts 30 seconds, I balanced the duration of my roar to match that. You obviously have to cast Roar before Meatball, so I'm assuming it's part of the rotation when you throw all the Spearguns onto one enemy. Therefore, I've opted for fleeting expertise to help with the health drain and pin us at a 41 second Roar duration. Health and adaptation are still important to stop enemies from blowing you up while you set up the spears. Energize helps our economy stay up. Arcane Acceleration doesn't work here since the pulse field cannot crit to proc it and we are not shooting our Epitaph. Molt Augmented when max lets the build top out at 308 strength, which is enough for a 92.4% Roar. Combined with the Primed Bane, this lets Ferrox do 6.12 times more damage because, remember, Roar is a Bane buff and Bane's double dip on dots. I'm also on Uneru for the Meatball build today. This serves 2 purposes. Easy revives as I go down because I can just armor strip with Caustic Strike, and it also lets us armor strip any enemies that are near Grendel, so I can shock them to death with my Thunderball. Arcanes I'm going to recommend today are Mega's Repair, which completely offsets the HP drain of Feast due to the Gorman Augment, and Mega's Anomaly to drag enemies closer for the Great Shockening. Casting Caustic Strike on the Acolytes also shreds them because it seems like Ferrox's AoE ignores DR mechanics on them and still easily kills them within a few seconds. Make sure to bring your typical Panzer build too, since Grendel still cannot prime enemies consistently while in his Meatball form. This is what I would run, with the standard quills for viral spread, Martyr to keep you alive, Devolution for infinite cat lives, Vacuum, Radar, yada yada. So how about we want to be like Bunny from First Descendant and run around with electrical pulses everywhere instead? This version of Grendel is a lot easier to run, however the Ferroxes do 2.5 times less damage since we aren't running Roar. It is also arguably more fun to actually use, albeit less ridiculous. On the other hand, you need much less strength, making other stats more buildable and convenient. It also means we don't need to run the Gorman Augment this time since the build is ability spam heavy, and it is thus better to build efficiency than run Gorman. We are running 190 efficiency. I know it only shows 175 here, but active drain abilities use uncapped efficiency. The 40 duration is the lowest you can go, and still minimize drain when efficiency is at 190. You can see our Feast still only drains 1/4 of the original cost. Duration isn't important this time since we have no buffs on us. The only debuff is Terrify, but we kill them instantly within seconds, so it doesn't matter that the armor strip fades after 10 seconds. Corrosive Projection is taken this time because it drops the strength requirement to full strip on Terrify to 138. If I use Growing Power, the requirement only drops to 142. We're using Materite today without any strength mods, which gets us to 140 with Sling Strength. This is a 40% strength buff that procs on Double Void Sling. This would be enough to full strip on CP, but not on Growing Power. And why else Materite? Because it also lets me drop Natural Talent. In fact, I would recommend bringing Archon casting shards on this Grendel to stack on it today, as many as it feels comfortable to you, but I'm showcasing without them today. I noticed that even with 190 efficiency for minimum drain, I could still bottom out on my energy during the DPS rotation if I played sloppy, so we bring Hunter's Adrenaline. This helps your DPS rotation to be smooth since Ferrox only lasts 30 seconds no matter what before you have to reset the throws. This also ensures that when you're standing still throwing Ferroxes again, the amount of firepower coming in will easily refill your energy bar even if you were low. I still recommend running Mega's Repair with this Grendel build, but I would run Lockdown instead of Anomaly this time since we no longer need grouping. This Grendel build is the opposite of the Meatball setup. Instead of pulling enemies to you, you run to them. Adaptation and Vitality, just like before, lets you set up your spear throw safely, and since we're using Epitaph as our primer, which has a higher than 0% crit chance unlike Ferrox's pulse field, the non-Meatball Grendel build can actually use Arcane Acceleration to pulse the Ferrox procs even faster. Energize is still there for obvious reasons, and well, every single time you cast Terrify on this build, you get all your shields back for shield gate. The melee today I'm going to recommend is the Glaive Prime. Its purpose is to kill enemies around you if you screw up and run out of energy to run your rotation. Especially because our second Grendel build lacks Roar, so your Ferrox pulses are significantly weaker against Acolytes and is actually almost unable to kill them. Glaive Prime solves that problem on the second Grendel setup. It's a basic 2x heavy throw build with volatile quick return to boost the AoE to 7.8 meters. You shouldn't honestly need this weapon much since it's just a safety fallback. Make sure to still bring the Prime Bane though since it double dips on the splash dots, which is the exact reason why I can kill the Acolyte even without Roar. DPS Rotations? For the Meatball setup, you spear an enemy a couple of times, eat them, and then go into your ball. Now you just roll towards enemies, then transfer and spam for Magus Anomaly dragging. Use Uneru's Caustic Strike when they're near, and watch them get blown up by Ferrox. Acolyte spawn? Cast Caustic Strike on them too, and make sure you have your Ferrox DPS rotation up. Your electric will rip through their shields fast and even kill their health quickly. It can work without armor strip if you have roar up, but I wouldn't recommend it. For the non-meatball version, you spear an enemy 4 or 5 times, eat them, then double dash for Mana Rai Void Sling. Now you have 140 strength with Corrosive Projection to full strip. Just run towards red dots on the map, cast Terrify, and watch everything die instantly. Every 30 seconds, you will have to reset either of these 2 rotations on any build. That's it. Now go show the world what Thundershock Grendel can do. Cheers! If this is your first time watching, feel free to leave a like or better yet subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. 79.5% of you are not subscribed. I'm trying my best to get you new information out always as soon as possible like I've done with the Veilbreaker update. Stick around if you want to see interesting memes and builds on a nearly daily basis. You don't want to miss out on any of that, do you? That'll be it for this video. Thank you all for watching and see you all next time.